California. The other sold in Wisconsin. The winners will split the $632.6 million jackpot or the $450.2 million cash option. This is the 7th largest jackpot in Powerball history. I'm Yolanda Harris.
For more state news, go to ONNRadio.com. I'm Dave James on the Ohio News Network.
Calls and conversations continue in less than 3 minutes as the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues after this.
Start the new year up right with Menard's Bag Sale. Pick up a bag in store and get 15% off everything you can fit in the bag now through January 15th. Whether you pack it, load it, stuff it, or stack it. From light bulbs to tools, snacks, and much more. Fit it in the bag and save 15%. So pick up a bag in store and find out how much you fit in the bag now through January 15th. Available in store only at Menards.
Save big money at Menards.
Sometimes the best time to prune trees is when they're dormant or with no leaves on them. For ISA certified arborists, it helps them see what branches may need to be pruned or removed. Dormant season pruning can also help lessen problems associated with insects and diseases and help create structurally stronger trees that can better handle heavy wet snows or ice buildup. Contact an ISA certified arborist to get the best professional advice on keeping your trees healthy and safe. Go to treesforohio.org. That's trees, the number 4, ohio.org.
With the new law, more people qualify for financial assistance at healthcare.gov. Real customers like Taylor.
You know, I wish people knew how easy it was to get health coverage. This new law has made it so affordable. I'm only paying $52 a month, but there are quality plans for even less.
New law, lower prices, more people qualify. Enroll by January 15th at healthcare.gov.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
Hey, I'm going to the kitchen. Can I grab you a Coors Light?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Huh. I never knew there was a zip line in my fridge. Hey! Hey, buddy! Yeah! You got 2 Coors Lights up there?
You got it!
Always brewed down to 34 degrees. With a taste as cold as the Rockies, only Coors Light gives you refreshment every time.
Here you go. 2 Coors Lights.
Awesome, man. Wow, these are really cold.
That's the only way I deliver it.
Sure. I mean, you being a mountain climber and all.
Yep.
You probably need a pretty warm coat in there, huh?
Yep.
Hey, Ben!
Yeah!
Ask him if he has any nachos.
You got any nachos in there?
No.
Just icy cold Coors Light?
Yep.
That makes sense. It is the Rockies.
Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. With great beer comes great responsibility.
For all of your IT needs, visit OmniPerforms.com. Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the Watchdog trusts. Live and local talk is just around the corner. Stay right here on the Watchdog.
Hello, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm the Storm Tracker, Darnell Foster, with a look at your local weather forecast for your Friday. Another cold day with a high near 23, under mostly sunny skies, partly cloudy through the overnight with a low of 12 degrees. Plenty of sunshine around for your Saturday, with highs in the low to mid-30s. Have yourself a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm the Storm Tracker, Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
Live from the Robinson Auto Group studios, this is the Valley's longest-running morning show, the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe from WKKX and WVLY.
Temperature not changing much, still a cold 16 degrees, 16 at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, 16 here at my home studios, the Elm Grove section of Wheeling, and 16 degrees at the Robinson Auto Group studios downtown Wheeling. In the heart of the Ohio Valley, the 16-degree thermometer reading feels like 4 degrees, so it feels really cold outside. We're starting the day off cloudy with some flurries left over from last night. Roads are still, in some cases, a little bit slippery, little patches of ice on them. There's still some with snow coming down, so be aware of it, but the bulk of the snow and the snow problems are all gone. Still, never a bad idea just to sort of take your time, take it slow, and as you go. Daytime high today will be up to around 24 degrees, but keep in mind that's going to be the actual air temperature, not the feels like temperature. Again, feels like 4 degrees right now. Also, keep in mind that if you're the city of Wheeling took time to issue a press release yesterday, an announcement reminding you that snow removal is your job, to ensure that your sideways are clear of snow and ice. It's a piece of legislation that the council passed 4 or 5 years ago, I think, somewhere around there, making sure that residents know the city, particularly in commercial districts, downtown and other places where there's commercial activity in particular, city is not going to take care of your streets or of your sidewalks. They'll take care of the streets, but not your sidewalks. So it made me chuckle a little bit that the city felt a need to come out with this a reminder yesterday. I get it. I mean, I get it. I'm not criticizing. I just chuckle a bit that that's what they felt they had to warn us about yesterday. You have to take care of your own snow, and if you don't, if they have to come and take care of it for you, they're gonna fine you. And if they fine you more than once and you don't pay, it'll take a lien on your house. So, look, it's the right thing to do. I just struck me as funny yesterday seeing this release come out. Let's talk about the city of Wheeling and other things happening here in the Upper Ohio Valley with newspaper editor John McCabe. Good morning, John.
Howard, good morning.
Got your sidewalks cleared?
In front of our building, yes, they pretty much are.
Okay, because if not, the city's going to come get you.
I would bet you $1 to a donut if I walked up to the 1400 block of Market Street, those sidewalks there aren't clear. Yeah. At least not yet. I'm sure they'll get to them at some point because they do have 24 hours, but they always kind of. I would bet you right now they're not clear. Now maybe I'm wrong, and I would owe you a donut. No. You could pay me $1 if I'm right.
All right, sounds good. It's good to talk to you. We have missed the last couple of weeks of our news and review segment because of the holidays. We didn't get too much of a chance to talk during the holiday season. How were your holidays?
Oh, wonderful. How about yours?
Good. It was a very good holiday season. I really enjoyed things. We did a lot of family stuff together that we hadn't done for a while, and Christmas was fun. New Year's was fun, and now we're all back to business again, I guess.
Yeah. My two oldest, who are both in college, one's leaving today and one's leaving Sunday to go back to school. So, it's the last 3 weeks of a more hectic than usual house come to an end. And, life goes back to being, probably just a little more mundane and obviously a heck of a lot calmer. House stays a heck of a lot cleaner. You don't run the dishwasher near as much and everything else. But, life moves on.
And the grocery bill is probably less.
Undoubtedly, yes.
John, let's start with a story that I don't know there's much more to say about it other than to talk about the fact that it happened. And that's this story of the kindergarten kid who walked away from school up in Warwood and got pretty far away from the school. That, as a grandparent and one-time parent of young kids, that was kind of scary to me that the kid could get that far away without the school recognizing he was gone.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of different thoughts on this, and I think really what it comes down to is how Ohio County Schools handles this. Obviously, young kid, I think his mother said he had lost a family member and was, just maybe wanted to go home. But the fact that he asked to go to the restroom at some point in the day on Tuesday and went to the restroom, didn't return to class, walked out the front door without a coat on, and got apparently at least most, if not nearly all the way home, and no one at the school realized he was gone. That's really concerning. It's concerning that he could walk out of the school, obviously, number one, without anyone noticing. And granted, understand our schools aren't locked down necessarily all the time, especially from the inside getting out. But, you know, there's got to be, I think it's this, you know, the longer term with this, and obviously the school system, I'm sure, you know, it's a mortifying situation for them as well, because if you can't take care of kids, you know, that's the kid safety, student safety is, you know, really one of their primary missions, along with learning. And so how they handle this, and how they, in my opinion, at least how they handle it publicly, you know, this really deals a blow to the trust that parents have to have with the school district over student safety. And I think the district's got to be extremely transparent in what they found, why it happened, and what the consequences are. This just can't be let's sweep it under the rug and hope it goes away, again, in my opinion. But I think they've got to handle this in a very public manner. Now, I understand they're not going to give out names and everything else, but you know, there's got to be some public disclosure of what consequences came from this.
Yeah, look, first of all, I commend the school system for immediately saying this is unacceptable, basically saying this is a giant screw-up, never should have happened. And as of the moment, they didn't try to alibi it away or come up with some explanation. So I give them a lot of credit for that. They at least publicly took the responsibility and said it, you know, it just absolutely never should happen. I think unacceptable was the word they used.
Right.
But I also think you're right. The public is going to need to know what was the next step, what happens next. And I don't even know what I think should happen. I still don't comprehend how you lose a kid for that period of time.
Right.
Just
5 minutes and they found him down the street, different story. You know, okay, but again, you know, minimum probably, I mean, most of us have driven on Cherry Hill Road. It's not a tenth of a mile walk up that hill. It's a good haul up that hill. So it's, again, he was, you know, I think his mother estimated at least 30 minutes he was gone. So I really, you know, again, I totally agree with you. They took ownership of it. That was the first important and most important step immediately. But, you know, there's got to be, you know, there's got to be something that comes out of this. This just can't be, well, we've dealt with it and move on. Because, you know, one of the things I think that has a lot of people concerned, and it's just not me, I hear it from others, I read about it from others, so much focus in this district is being placed on things that at least appear to be outside of the classroom. You know, we're worrying about locker rooms and lights and sports fields and entrances at the high school, all important things that in many ways you have a facilities director to handle. It seems in this, you know, in a lot of ways, the top administrators are handling these things, and so the focus seems to be somewhat off a little bit in how things have, you know, again, the Board of Education, what's been the focus there for the last several months? Masking, almost exclusive of everything else. This is, you know, this needs to be a big wake-up call to the district that, you know, there's important issues of, you know, student safety, student learning, you know, a curriculum coming out of remote learning times that need to be the priority above all else. And, you know, this, again, and there needs to be public disclosure as to how this happened and what the steps are that are being taken to make sure it doesn't happen again, and what the consequences were for whoever is primarily responsible.
Yeah, I don't want to engage in a witch hunt, but something went really wrong. Again, as you said, John, so you let the kid, I mean, I would actually back up to saying, if this is a student that you knew was going through a little emotional problem anyways because a relative passed, I'm assuming the teacher knew that, you might be extra cognizant, first of all, of that student as he leaves the classroom, goes to the bathroom, whatever. But setting that aside, okay, so the kid goes to the restroom, all right, that's fine. And you lose track of time, you're teaching your class, you're, you know, working on math, whatever, I get that. But somewhere before 45 minutes is up, you would think somebody would go, where did Johnny go?
You know, and again, I'm not trying to. I'm going to throw something out there that is not going to be an excuse or anything else. But I do wonder. Okay, you have a youngster in your life right around that age, and I've had several that age at one point. You know, kids that age can look similar, and when you put masks on them, I do wonder if that made any difference. And again, I'm not trying to find any excuse
That's a good
there.
point. I mean, that's actually a good point.
You know, but
Yeah.
when you have a class full of kids in masks, are they harder to differentiate, especially when they're young and they all are kind of around the same size? You know, does that make it? Again, this is not to slough off in any way what happened, but it does raise an interesting question of the challenges that it might pose when you have a classroom of 24 5 or 6 year olds. Is it easy to notice one from the other?
That's actually a good point. I had not thought about that, and that is a good perspective. Maybe the teacher thought the kid was back, kind of looking out over the sea of faces wearing masks, and nothing jogs her that somebody isn't here. So that's actually a good point. I've said this yesterday, both on and off the air. Until you know the terrain, you understand what this kid went through. It sounds bad, but it's even worse when you understand the terrain. The kid left the school, apparently went up the street, might have gone through the neighborhood, but up the street, up to Warwood Avenue, down Warwood Avenue, then crosses Warwood Avenue, which is Route 2, a major highway, and goes up a narrow, winding, no sidewalk road. I mean, that kid is really lucky.
Yes, and what as we talk about people disconnecting from one another, how many cars passed this young man as he walked before somebody finally, with some sense, stopped and realized something was out of the ordinary here. The middle of the day on a Tuesday, and there's a young boy walking up a road that, frankly, nobody should be walking on, and stopped and got him back down to the gas station at the bottom of the hill and called police. But it's just a good reminder for all of us. Keep our eyes open. I'd have to assume several cars passed him before this woman stopped and picked him up. And so good for her for just being a good neighbor and a good citizen, and for realizing something was askew here.
And if you don't want to pick a kid up, if you're concerned about, I don't know, liability, then at least alert somebody. Maybe go to the nearest gas station or whatever and say, have any of you noticed there's a kid walking the street here? I told the story yesterday. It's been a number of years ago now, but my wife and I were driving through Center Wheeling, and there was a young kid, probably maybe a year or two older, maybe 7 or 8, just wandering through the Center Wheeling area by himself. And my wife said, let's just stop here for a second and roll down the window and, ask the kid. And he said, well, I don't know where my mommy is. And my wife used to work in social services, so she called someone and said, there's a kid here, I don't know what to do. And they came and took care of him. And they found the mother, and there was nothing nefarious happening. The kid literally just got lost. But still, we stopped and said, this can't be right. There's a kid walking the street here in the middle of the day, way too young to be doing this. What's going on? And it does go, I guess, John, to the fact that we don't want to get involved too much anymore.
Right. I do worry about that. I mean, that's something that people have again pulled away from one another, and are hesitant to get involved because they don't want to seem nosy. They don't want to seem nibby. They maybe grew up at a time like I did or you did, where every neighbor on the street, if you were if they caught you throwing eggs at cars, they were calling your parents. And the heck's it any of their business what you do. But I think it is just a good reminder for all of us. Keep your eyes open, because not that this was a good situation in any way, but it could have turned out a lot worse if this woman hadn't stopped.
No question about that. We did take time after the incident was public. We actually talked to my grandson, Teddy, who is 6, same age as this kid. And, well, he's almost 7, Teddy is. He'll tell me that. So it's almost 7. But we asked him, we said, Teddy, would you ever leave school by yourself and try to walk somewhere by yourself. He goes, I would never leave the school without mommy or daddy or grandma or granddad, or without one of the teachers telling me I needed to go somewhere. So, I mean, it's probably a good time for people to talk about this with their kids. Just a little reminder to your kids that, if you want to come home, have somebody call mom and dad, I guess.
Exactly.
All right, let me take a quick break, John. We'll come back. I want to talk about a couple of things in the city of Wheeling, some traffic concerns maybe. See what you're thinking about the legislature. You've got a legislative preview coming up later today. I mean, you personally are going to be taking part in hearing what some of the things are coming up, but I'm wondering what you're hearing behind the scenes. We'll get into that. Over in St. Clairsville, Mark Thomas is now an elected official again, which is kind of interesting. So we got a few things we'll get into coming up as John McCabe and I continue our conversation on the Friday Roundtable here on the Watchdog Morning Show.
Are you traveling? Working a little bit too much? Is your firm...
If I'll do one real quick story when we come back, then I'll go to the news. Make sense? Okay. Through January 9th. Admission is $10. 17 and under are free, accompanied by an adult. Call 242-7272 for more information. And happy holidays from the Watchdog.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Washington County's largest gun show is back on Saturday and Sunday, January 8th and 9th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Washington County Fairgrounds. Admission is only $7, and kids under 12 get in free with an adult. Everyone is welcome. They offer free appraisals and great prices on all types of firearms, modern, military, and antique. Oh, by the way, they also have a great assortment of knives. They have over 450 tables with cash buyers on site for your used guns. Visit arhsportshop.com or give them a call at 724-948-3571. Once again, that's 724-948-3571 for more information. The Washington County Gun Show, presented by ARH Sports Shop, January 8th and 9th.
A serious injury from an accident can be just the start of your worries. What if you cannot return to work? How do you take care of your family if you're disabled? At Gelner Law Offices, we represent seriously injured people and understand their problem. We know how to get you fair compensation. We will work hard to make sure you get the money you deserve for your losses. Don't go it alone. If you're hurt in an accident, call us at 304-242-2900 or visit us at gelnerlaw.com.
We'd like to help.
Hi, it's Hoppy Kercheval from Talkline on Metro News. Make sure you join us for the next Talkline Friday morning at 10:06. It's Friday. Of course, we'll talk about the news in West Virginia and across the country. But also, because it's Friday, that means Steam Release. Your chance to vent and get it off your chest. It's a Steam Release, a part of our Friday show, 10:06 in the morning, right here on this Metro News radio station. We'll talk to you then.
Broadcasting from the Ohio Valley, talking about the Ohio Valley. We're live and local. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
It's about 8:30, head to the newsroom here from the Big 7 in a minute. John McCabe is with me on our Friday round table, and we're talking about a couple of different things. John, this is not a big story that we have a lot to talk about. It's just sort of an interesting little sidelight to the news I thought we ought to put on the table, and that is former Belmont County Commissioner, former attorney, Mark Thomas, currently facing federal charges, is back as an elected official again.
Yeah, he was sworn in this week as one of I think 2 new members of St. Clairsville City Council. Mr. Thomas, as you know, the 2 of us have discussed, we reported is facing I think it's 4 federal mail fraud charges, felony mail fraud charges concerning allegations with a former client of his. Mr. Thomas again is an attorney as well, and so. You know, he has been elected by the residents of St. Clairsville and will serve his term until such time that you know, if his trial moves forward and his case moves forward and he would be convicted. I suppose at that time they would have to get someone else to fill his seat. But you know, what's interesting though is you read that story, there are a couple of really interesting points in that story that we don't often talk about St. Clairsville. But you know, just they're talking, of course, building a new water plant out there, or trying to build a new water plant, and I just am always amazed at these small towns, you know, Moundsville in recent years that you know go into decades of debt when they could piggyback off of a water system in Wheeling that has more than enough capacity to serve probably the entire region. And you know, and so when you look at a town of 5,000 in St. Clairsville, want to spend $5-6 million. The other thing, and I don't know if you read the story we wrote, but one of the council members was complaining because they got charged for public records that they requested through the city of St. Clairsville, $19, and you know, and I guess if that's the policy, that's the policy. You know, you would have to pay it, I would have to pay it. I'm not sure why a council member, if they're not, you know, normal course of business records that come from come during a meeting, an agenda, et cetera, should be, they're no different. But just a couple little interesting tidbits out of that story. But to Mark Thomas, yeah, he has been seated, and I'm sure Mark's a very smart guy. He'll serve St. Clairsville well, and until such time that his case moves forward.
It would be easy to think that there could be some tension because of Mark Thomas facing federal charges right now. But it sounded to me from the tenor of your story that the council kind of said, okay, he's here. He was properly elected. I mean, nobody ran against him, but he was properly elected. He's properly seated. So let's go. Let's move forward. It seemed like there wasn't a lot of rancor or undue tension. Now, I wasn't there, obviously, but that's what it felt like to me from reading the article.
Mm-hmm. Same here, yes.
So just a little tidbit there I thought was worth talking about. Mark Thomas back as an elected official. 8:34:26 to the hour. Some Ohio Valley headlines right now from Channel 7. Then John and I'm looking at a text that I've got here. John and I will talk about a couple of things happening in the city of Wheeling, including, John, I want to see what you think, if you think anything at all about these proposed neighborhood zone changes the mayor and the vice mayor are pushing through, and we'll talk about that and more coming up here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Ohio Valley headlines, and Tony's got the Morning Mountaineer report right now.
Now it's time for your local news headlines from 7 News at
Way back in 1949, West Virginia has the lead in this series, 13 games to 8. West Virginia has won 12 of the last 16 meetings. The Mountaineers are 12-7 against the Wildcats since joining the Big 12 Conference, and in each of the last 3 encounters, Kansas State has really had difficulty scoring. They're averaging just 49 points per game against the Mountaineers in the last 3 meetings. That is today's Mountaineer Report. It's brought to us by Kroger, the official grocer of WVU Athletics. I'm Tony Caridi on the Mountaineers Sports Network from Learfield.
New Belgium Fat Tire Amber Ale is now available in West Virginia and distributed locally by wine and beverage merchants. With its toasty and biscuit-like malt flavors blended perfectly with hoppy freshness, it's bound to become one of your new favorite craft beers. Fat Tire Amber Ale is now available at local retailers. Please don't drink and drive, and drink responsibly. From your friends at Wine and Beverage Merchants.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. Beware of telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you. Callers threatening you with arrest or other legal action and demanding money are not from us. If you receive a call like this, hang up, do not provide them with any form of payment or information. Report the call at oig.ssa.gov.
Hey there, Dave Weekly here. Metro News Hotline presents what's trending in sports, music, movies, tech, television, and more from a Mountain State point of view. Renowned local and national guests pepper the daily lineup with authoritative insights and commentary on a wide variety of topics from West Virginia high school sports to the financial markets. Join the fun. Every day, Coop and I dip into irreverent discussions with calls, texts, tweets, the question of the day, and the always popular In or Out. Metro News Hotline, weekdays from 3 to 6 on Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
If you want to hear it again, catch a morning show rewind for some of the best bits and interviews from the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe. They're on the podcast page at watchdognetwork.com or search The Watchdog on Apple Podcasts.
Here's a look at the Ohio Valley local news week in review with newspaper editor John McCabe and Howard Monroe.
Still 16 degrees, Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. Same here at my home studios in the Elm Grove section of Wheeling and at the Robinson Auto Group Studios downtown Wheeling in the heart of the Ohio Valley. Let me just double check the feels like temperature. Oh, all right. Up at the airport, that 16 degrees now feels like 2 deuce. It's cold outside, feeling cold outside. Still a few flurries floating around, not too much to worry about. Take your time. Some of the roads still a little snow-covered or slippery from the night before. John McCabe and I are kicking around some of the Ohio Valley news stories in review. John, I've had a lot to say the last couple of days about the neighborhood zone changes that the mayor and vice mayor are really pushing in the city of Wheeling. They've now sent this off to the Planning Commission for consideration. Have you followed that story? Thoughts on that?
Sure, yeah. I find it to be a fairly interesting story. I think the most interesting parts for me center around simply the zoning code and the fact that it's been 20 years or so since it's been addressed. And the last time it was addressed, and I covered it and wrote an extensive 4 or 5 part series on it. It was done by a firm out of New York that knew nothing about Wheeling and didn't really do, in a lot of people's opinions, a very good job of addressing things. And so, from that standpoint, I think what the vice mayor said in an opinion piece he wrote for us last Sunday, and what they both said publicly elsewise is very true. That it's probably a good time to look at the zoning code more closely and address some of these matters. I think I don't have an opinion on the accessory structures, except for the fact that if they are correct, and before the zoning change they were allowed, and then they weren't. So I think it's worth a continued discussion as to whether that's something the city should consider. I think what's really going to be interesting here, Howard, and this strikes right at you and your job on the Planning Commission. I get the feeling here, and there's been a couple this council has been a little more willing to at least talk about overriding planning commission votes. Now, I'm trying to think, and I was thinking about this the other day, of the number of times that the planning commission has made a recommendation and council has gone against it, and enacted a zone change. And I don't know of many times that that's happened, if any, in the last 2 decades. This is one that I could see maybe that happening. I could easily see the planning commission with your anti-progress lead come out and say, no, 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 and council, by a close vote saying yes, yes, yes. And that's a little bit in jest, but I'm going to, again, I don't know what the other planning commissioners are thinking, but I think it's going to be a really interesting test of the power of an elected body that has to answer to the voters versus the power of a commission appointed by that elected body that, at least in Wheeling for the last couple decades, the planning commission wields a lot of power. There's absolutely no doubt about it. It may well be the most powerful body in Wheeling outside of council itself. And I'm really going to be interested to see if the recommendation from the planning commission comes back as I expect it will, what the mayor and vice mayor and maybe some others do with that, if they accept the planning commission report and then turn around and enact this change anyway. So kind of a long-winded way to say I'm really intrigued by this.
John, I think we may have lost Howard there.
He had nothing
there
to say, Viv.
There he is.
Howard had nothing to say, so he dropped off. Oh.
He's back.
There have been occasions where the council in the past has overridden the planning commission, although not very often.
Right.
And I don't believe any occasion with the current council, and when I say current council, I'm talking about beginning with the election of Glenn Elliott. I don't believe so. I could be wrong. I can tell you that the issue of the bank on National Road, there had been, in talking to some council members, several council members told me if the vote of the planning commission had not been unanimous, then they might have considered overriding it. So your point's well taken.
Hey, Howard, do you notice that empty building, the old empty church, is still sitting there, as opposed to something that could be bringing jobs and tax base to Wheeling? Just a point of fact there.
It will find its level at some point. Don't you worry about that. But your point there is right. Your point about the consultant, I think, is all washed up.
I don't think so. I think that was
the consultant. I was chairman. I was chairman of the committee that worked with that consultant.
You remember what was
beginning in 19.
Anyone with name like
Harlan Sexton. Harlan Sexton was her name, and I can't remember off the top of my head, although I have notes on it here. I can't remember the name of the consultant.
Mm-hmm.
She presented a number of ideas to us, but it was very much a city committee, not the planning commission per se. It was a committee of citizens that we had put together who held numerous meetings, including public hearings. In January of 2001, I've got some notes of a public hearing that was held and some of the comments made by the citizens of the city of Wheeling. It was presented to us by an outside consultant, but it certainly was massaged and debated among Wheeling citizens, the Wheeling staff, and the Wheeling Planning Commission. So I don't buy the argument, and I've got some significant notes to make my point, which I will make next week at the Planning Commission, that it was, it certainly was a thought through. The idea, the implication that the mayor and vice mayor have given, that this was some sort of mystical, magical fait accompli from this consultant, it simply isn't true, and we've got some documents to show that.
Howard,
the other point I want to make, without even getting,
They were
I'm sorry,
from
what?
New York City. Do we really want New York City people telling us how to live our lives here in Wheeling?
No, which we didn't have. What we had was people in the city of Wheeling deciding how to live our lives in the city of Wheeling, based on information we got from other people who know the field of zoning. And it was
in case you're wondering, I'm sitting here having a good chuckle, so I'm just pulling your
It was
chain.
it was a local committee of local people, not elected officials, not even appointed officials, but of citizens of the city. We had public hearings on it. It was there was significant input locally, and it was designed. It was taking some information we had, massaging it to make it work for the city of Wheeling. I don't buy the argument that because somebody's from out of town, they automatically should be disregarded. They presented some information to us, which we then used. But I want to go to the heart of what you were suggesting here. I have spent a good bit of time this past week talking to most of the council members, some significant time talking to most of the council members. I don't think this is by any stretch of the imagination a fait accompli. I think the mayor and vice mayor are pushing this very hard. I think there are at least 2, if not 3 members of council that are adamantly opposed to it. And then there are a couple that are waiting to see what happens. So your implication that this will get pushed through council, I'm not sure. I don't know that. In fact, my guess at the moment will be that the council would not move these things through. Now, none of this addresses the issue at hand. Are these issues good or bad? I think they're all bad proposals, but just talking the politics of it here, this council is extremely divided on this issue. The mayor and the vice mayor are pushing it strongly, but there you have Councilman Sklavonakis and Councilman Seidler, and I think Councilman Palmer, all of whom are firmly opposed to it. And then you have the others that I haven't been able to get a fix on. I think they're waiting to hear more information. So this is going to be an interesting exercise. I know the mayor said in council meeting this week that he hopes the planning commission keeps an open mind, and I just can't help but think he was thinking of me when he said that.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be just a really interesting exercise in government again, and we'll see, because again, I think their comments have made it clear from the mayor and the vice mayor, they feel very strongly about this. And we'll see what type of influence they actually wield within their council if it comes back again as I expect it to, and it's probably going to be, recommended against by the planning commission. Will they, risk putting it up for a vote on the council floor and it losing there? I'd say probably not. I'm sure they'll do their vote counting and everything else beforehand, but they've really, for whatever reason, as you said, this issue, maybe as much as the bank, maybe even more a little bit, they are very passionate about and feel very strongly about. So we'll see what the mayor can do with it.
I am continuing to ask the question. I had lunch with the vice mayor yesterday. We hashed this out a good bit. I still don't understand the driving force behind it. We are getting virtually no requests in the development department for accessory buildings. People aren't calling saying, why can't I do this? Boy, I want to do this. We're not getting anybody who's asking for something that they can't have. There just doesn't seem any public demand, and I don't fully understand. And even the mayor and the vice mayor say, well, there probably won't be very many of these anyway. The question I ask is, then why go through this effort if nobody seems to want it? You don't think there's going to be a lot of them anyway. Why do you take the time to revise the code to change the concept of a residential neighborhood to do this? But we'll see. I mean, we'll begin the planning commission begins the process, and Mr. Mayor, I will keep an open mind. I already talked to the vice mayor about, I think there's room for some modifications that would make some sense. They talk about granny flats and in-law suites. I might be more amenable to seeing something that limits these accessory buildings to those kinds of uses as opposed to just letting anybody rent them out. But it's going to be very interesting. We'll have to wait and see.
Yes.
Biff, do I have to do a break? Let me ask you that first.
No, we're good.
Okay, then, John, let's talk about traffic just for a quick minute here. Another one of the major arteries in the city of Wheeling shut down for at least the next 30 days, and that's the Washington Avenue Bridge.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation here. That bridge serves, Wheeling University, WVU Medicine Wheeling Hospital, the Washington Avenue Plaza there. makes it a little more inconvenient to get to those spots. The bridge is, as we reported, and you and I have spoken about a couple times over the last few years. I think it was back in 2019 when the city first, talked about the fact that this bridge was in serious disrepair, and they were either going to have to, do extensive renovations or replace it. They thought they could, kind of the thought then was that it could be held off until it could be scheduled and the money could be all put together. And, here we are 2 years later, and it is, I think what the terminology is now is that, the failure or a worry of shifting, the bridge would shift some, which would lead to even more problems if it would shift on its support. So it's shut down now. I think the city taxpayers are spending around $400,000 as a temporary fix. Before the larger, I think it was about $8 million replacement project will happen in the next couple of years. But it's a real, is it a real hassle? No, but it does, it affects everything from, police response, e-car response, maybe not fire trucks because they've already had to, when they lowered the weight limit a couple years back, they already had to find alternate routes around that, as Chief Jim Blazer said a week or so back. But it is a main artery through Wheeling. You're on National Road and you want to get to the hospital, you now either have to turn off in Elm Grove or you have to go down to, down by Kroger and get back on that way. So minor inconvenience, only for another roughly 3 to 4 weeks, and then, things go back to normal until the replacement time.
Yeah, inconvenience is a good word. It's probably going to cost some business to those businesses in the plaza, right? The Hole and Run on one side and the Dollar General and Greco's. I mean, because you won't be able to come right off Washington Avenue and go to the plaza. You have to come in, so to speak, from the back way. But it's more of an inconvenience than a gigantic problem. It's not like when the Fort Henry was shut down to downtown Wheeling for a while, or when you couldn't get through the tunnels. I mean, it's not going to be of that nature. It is just going to be an inconvenience that people are going to have to think about. Talked to Bill Ehlenfeld earlier this morning. You guys had a story about it. Federal attorney here in the Northern District of West Virginia, adding another responsibility to his job.
Yeah, he'll be overseeing the name just went out of my head, but it's the federal, basically, interdiction task force that covers this region. A nice appointment for U.S. Attorney Ehlenfeld. If I remember correctly, he may have talked, I didn't listen to his interview with you, but I think he was there when this initiative started a number of years back. And so a really good, a good appointment for him. And again, it was funny yesterday, something came up yesterday, and I was looking through some old files. By old, I'm talking only 7, 8, 9 years ago, back to when we had the big drug bust. Ehlenfeld was the U.S. attorney, but we had the big drug bust that included the school counselor. You remember that, Howard, back in like 2014, 2013? And back then, it was all these pills, and that was kind of I'm going to say it was at the beginning of this big opioid spike. It was probably well underway by then, but I think really at the beginning of the public's awareness, as we look back now, as what was to come. And again, that was prosecuted by Ehlenfeld's office, and so I think that's why I look at these appointments, and I think they are this is a good slot for him. He's really pushed hard on federal help in the drug war, particularly in this region where access from one state to the other is so easy, and you've got pills coming from major cities that are within an easy drive to a longer one-day drive. So again, really good appointment for the U.S. Attorney.
I think so. All right, John, good talking to you. You'll learn more about the legislature at the gathering you're going to attend virtually here in a couple of minutes. And next week, the legislative session gets underway, so we'll probably have the State of the State speech, which the governor says he's got major announcements to make.
Well, that'll be
real
good
quick,
to hear.
30 seconds. Any idea what you think he might be talking about?
I really don't. I just don't know. I mean, I wonder if he'll have his whiteboard out and his construction helmets on or anything, but I don't know, and it could be something as as easy as resurrecting his sales tax idea, or something totally off the books from that. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll find out, and it's probably one of the things we'll talk about next week on the Friday Roundtable. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Good talking to you again. Have a good day.
You too.
All right, newspaper editor John McCabe. He and I normally on Fridays get together in the 9 o'clock hour. He's actually attending what they call the Legislative Look Ahead, put on by the State Press Association, where they kind of get a preview of, and some of the legislators are there to talk about what's coming up in the session, which begins next week. Next week is the State of the State speech in West Virginia. The governor hinting yesterday major announcements he wants to make. We'll talk a tad about that coming up in the next hour of the show, plus some Friday funnies and more. It's 16 degrees, feels like 2. Yikes. It's 9 o'clock on the Watchdog Morning Show.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
From it.
All right, Biffy, I'm going to take a quick break and open my front door and say Teddy's out sled riding, so I think I'll go take a look at that, and I'll be back in a minute.